long as you're doing you, you're doing the sweetie now.
We're here for the BTS meal.
Can I get a... Look how cool this is.
I'm back at McDonald's.
So Travis has a giant chicken McNuggets body pillow.
Shut up. Is that what I think it is?
McDonald's, reimagining the Happy Meal.
Right here, I'm about to be so happy, but it's grimace, dude. Look at this dude. Bro, y'all need to go to McDonald's right now.
I'm loving it, yeah. Who's the agency that produces that for you?
We work with a number of different partners, but our core agency group is Wieden and Kennedy, and then the Publicis Starcom group for media.
Always great creative shop, Wieden and Kennedy.
Yeah, great partners.
Quite amazing. And you've been there how long now?
Just a little over 2 years.
Excellent. And if we go back a little bit, the McDonald's brand journey, Tarek, like 6 years ago, before you got there, where was McDonald's then compared to now, and how is the journey gone?
Yeah, normally I have like a Ronald frown face as part of the conversation because we were not in a great place 6 years ago. We had significant declines across all of our segments, but really significant declines in the youth market, which is a critical part of our business, and across all cultural groups as well. So I came in as my partner, Morgan Flatley, who now runs Global. She had laid down a great foundation and really reestablishing and reawakening the brand. We knew we had to come back and win with the youth market, and that was truly the focus. And Travis Scott and Famous Orders was the beginning of that. Mm-hmm. But in all right, there's a campaign, and you know, a campaign, a strategy does not make. And so, but what we recognized when we did Famous Orders was we had unlocked an element that, frankly, the brand had forgotten about itself. We'd gotten so over-focused on haters and over-focused on transactional and, you know, limited time offers. We were trying to buy our way back, and we all know what that story looks like. But Famous Order gave us our swagger back, and when I joined, I realized, and what I'd said to my organization was, look, the good news is you've called culture, and it's calling you back. The question now is, how do you keep it going? It's a little bit like the dog that caught the bus, because in this market...
What do you do when you hit that?
Yeah, and you know, you can call culture and you can get canceled just as quickly, right? And so we really started to establish a cultural framework for how we're going to grow the business.
Excellent. And you could certainly see your appeal to youth by the music and the quick cutting and the dancing shots. So, you know, well done there. And what's kind of the North Star, the marketing North Star, would you say, for McDonald's?
Yeah, well, you know, like I said, everyone's talking culture, and we knew that was a place we had the right to play, but that's a big canvas. So we've defined that in 4 areas specifically. You know, obviously we're a food company, so the first place starts with, you know, changing the taste of culture and influencing the taste of culture. You'll see that this week. We've just launched two new flavors, 2 new chicken nugget sauces, which our fans love. And one that I'm in particularly proud of, we launched a Mambo sauce, which is, anyone from the DC area knows what Mambo sauce is. And we saw it as an opportunity to celebrate a rich, deep black culinary culture by bringing Mambo sauce to the marketplace.
Okay.
And so food is going to always be at the center. The second point is, if you're going to be in the youth market, you got to live in their creative universe. And so whether that's food hacks or some of the things you're seeing us do in social, we really come to understand them better. The third one might seem like a little bit of a strange area to talk about culture, but we believe data sits at the center of it. And obviously in a digital-first youth market, you know, data is a currency. It's a form of language. And if we can use it the right way to create value, you're going to create deeper relationships, and that's certainly what we're starting to see. And this is a company that didn't have that value in data even 2.5 years ago. So we've only been in a loyalty world for about 2.5 years. And then the last one is we're McDonald's, but we weren't really on our front foot. And so it's great to participate in culture, but we should be creating culture. And that's really both an external cry and an internal cry, because you can't claim to go after being a cultural icon if you're not living that same thing internally. And so that's also the true north for how we think about how we develop our organization, the commitments that we make to the diverse marketing world, and how we live up to the way we're bringing our own folks in and developing our organization.
And are the staff embracing that culture, and they're seeing it through the training or the messaging internally?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited both in terms of the way it's changed, but you got to reflect it. My own leadership organization. So my leadership team is 70% women, and it's 40% people of color. And so you've got to reflect it.
Sure.
And more importantly, they're rock stars, right? And so how do you bring those two together? You can live the reality of that. And so, yeah, and what I would say more importantly is we're not just living it, the results are showing it. Up until October, I'm in my month of joy and pain because I'm trying to comp the results of what we did with Adult Happy Meal last year without an Adult Happy Meal this year. But up until this month, we had driven 83 consecutive weeks of comp growth and traffic growth.
Wow.
Which is a record for the business.
Week. Wow.
So, success begets success, and organizations get excited about that.
And so you kind of joined right after COVID?
I joined right after COVID.
Yeah.
About a year after.
What was that like?
Well, look, I think it was like I said, first of all, I got a great partner in Morgan who had set a great foundation and had done a lot of work to reset the organization. And so I had the gift of a great team in place. What was great is I started when we were all back in the office, and then we all jumped out of the pool again that following December, so it was a bit of a stop and start. The harder part was actually getting out into the field, because you can't work in this business without going and spending time with the 1,500 franchisees that drive this business. But I love it. It's I think my agency life prepared me for that in terms of the relationships you develop.
Can you do like an undercover boss and walk around maybe?
I don't think I can do anything undercover anymore. It feels like.
Right. And the franchises you mentioned. So in your marketing decisions, the franchises are certainly a powerful force. How do you work with them, and how does that decision-making process happen?
Yeah, people talk. It's interesting, when I was starting, people were like, oh, are you sure you want to do this with the challenge of the franchisees, or as you say, a powerful force? I actually don't. That's not my experience. I find that we are an organization that's now nearly 70 years old, that understand that we are the most dominant franchise opportunity in this country for a reason. We collaborate, and as well as I do, great work like this, even internally without having to partner with a third party, requires great creative tension. So of course we have moments of great creative tension, but the operating body that I work with of operators, we come together and we really work it through. It is a different process. I refer to it as the congressional part of my career, because everything that we do goes back. It's their money, right? At the end of the day, I spend a percentage of all of our operators' money. I'm accountable to that. I'm responsible to that.
Right.
That comes with great responsibility. And so, of course, they should have input into how we go about doing that, and we have a great process for how we do that.
You mentioned your agency experience, Tarek. Give us a little bit of your history before McDonald's.
So my life before McDonald's, I guess, falls into a couple chapters. The first chapter is the first half of my career I spent in the agency world. I was an account planner, so I spent time in the strategy space, working in a couple of different of the big agency markets. I was with Burnett and Foot Cone, and then did a startup within the Omnicom group called Element 79.
Mostly Chicago area?
Yeah, mostly Chicago area.
Right.
Spent a little time globally with Omnicom. I ran the Middle East and Africa for a number of years. And then I moved to the corporate side. I was with HP, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, most recently Petco before joining McDonald's.
Excellent. So in your media choices, it's a changing ecosystem. It's becoming even more fragmented. There's so many choices. Maybe could you talk a little bit about McDonald's media choices, how they've evolved, and then we could talk a little bit about digital out of home and out of home.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you think about the way the landscape of media has changed on the whole in the last 10 years, if anything, I'd say we were late. As I said, we really only moved into the space of putting ourselves in a position to have powerful first-party data really 2.5 years ago, when we launched the My McDonald's reward program. We had an app, but the reality was the app was, at its earliest, a display menu. moved into some transactional capabilities, but now in a position where we're literally creating a CRM relationship with our customers, which has been absolutely not just the media strategy, it's changed the way we've thought about the business. And when you put it in context, let me just give you some context about.
And by the way, but hold on, if you want to think about some questions, we'll have a chance for just a couple of questions with Tarek, so give that some thought.
We put the context of the business just for a sec. We have, on an annual basis, we're a business where roughly, not quite, but almost 90% of the country walks through our doors once a year.
90% of the country comes through McDonald's doors at least once a year.
Yeah.
Incredible number.
And nearly 60% of the country once a quarter.
Wow.
And so when you think about the data trail you can attach to that, establishing our ability to get our app up and running. So 2.5 years in, I've now got well north of 50 million contactable knowns on the platform. We have north of 35 million 90-day actives on the platform. So even think about your own media platforms, the level of data that we're now playing with and are able to have an engagement with our media partners to bring the power of the first and third together has fundamentally changed the way we think about the business. And for our franchisees, that is a seismic shift. To ask an organization that has grown up incredibly successful for the last near 70 years, focusing on daily sales, focusing on cost, transactional margin, to now have them have a conversation where I want to start to have dialogue around lifetime value. I want to start to have dialogue around spending for cost of acquisition, and you're watching what your promotion costs go up. So these are fundamental shifts that we've had to work through. And then, of course, yes, they've played out in the way we think about our media strategies, because now our ability to really start to target that. But the other interesting challenge, and which plays to this room, elements of outdoor and how you engage, is the transition between how those, essentially we used to think about things as we were national, and the local guys were your old local media buys, right? And so in a world where you're omni, that whole process has been turned on its head, and it creates a very different way to think about how you go about planning. In this last month, we've now put that first-party data in the hands of our local co-ops. And so the transition to becoming, when I started down the journey of joining, I would talk to the franchisees around, I think you need to stop thinking about geography and start thinking about managing data signals.
Yes.
And as we think about those data signals, we'll then think about how that applies to the media strategy. And it's working. And the good news is the financial aspect of what we're seeing for those who are on the app are showing up, north of a 2x value. So you can start to build the business story. But to move an organization that has had that many years in its own traditional approach has been a significant part of the journey.
Powerful using that data. And your thoughts about digital out-of-home and out-of-home advertising?
Yeah, I think what it comes down to, you'll see the vast majority of the outdoor that we do sits inside the local co-ops. But what's happened as a result of the data is we are now starting to have a conversation about less versus national and local, and more about what are the objectives we're trying to achieve, where are the places that my team is investing, and in many cases, what we're doing from a national spend perspective, that's more in the targeted streaming spaces, so we're using screens like at gas stations, et cetera, but it's viewed as an outdoor play on our video strategy. Okay. Right, so we're still targeting.
As an outdoor plan and a video strategy.
Yeah, I think from a national side, we think of it through the it's more of our video strategy, but the placement, right?
Okay.
But increasingly, we're starting to have that same dialogue with the local teams to think about how they apply the digital and the omni approach.
Right.
All the screens around.
Right.
Around
Exactly. Good.
It's still heavy. It's fascinating. One of the things that I thought was pretty hysterical when I joined. I have operators who actually own outdoor circuits.
No kidding.
So they're buying their own outdoor media for their own outdoor circuits. But
okay.
So I think it's as you all have those conversations around the role of how do you take the data that's around us and the screens that are around us and think about how those play together.
Right.
Those are very much part of how we're thinking about things.
That's great, because there's such tremendous data now. We talked before about moving screens, certainly gas station screens. We know so much about the customers as you've really embraced.
Yeah,
that
and
as well.
I think the place we get really excited, and we're starting to run some pilots right now, is the application of AI overlay on top of it.
Sure.
So as I start to understand and can start to use the algorithm to understand the movement and predictability of my customers and potentially competitive customers, how do I then take that knowledge, not only apply it to this screen, but then start to apply it to the surrounding displays around them is where we're starting to move.
We love that, because the power of digital out of home is, of course, the data, the targeting, and the addressability, and of course also the video. And we're seeing a lot of video budgets now moving to out of home because of the power of video. Any questions from the audience here, from anybody? Please, I think I need a microphone, maybe? Oh, it's in the chair, right behind me. I'm sitting on the mic. Good thing I didn't make any strange noises.
Hey there. Hi, Carl from Designage again. My question actually has to do with maybe something you were thinking when you put together this program.
Closer.
I don't know. But I'm thinking about the last speaker, and I'm thinking about the fact that McDonald's, you're talking about youth, the way, in a very different way than youth was being talked about before, but I also know that McDonald's is a weirdly efficient producer of cheap, safe, consistent, quality food. And is there an ESG or environmental angle to your addressing of that youth market, maybe its higher functions, somewhere in this story? Do these two stories meet?
Yeah, let me pick up on that. I would define this as good value as opposed to cheap quality food.
Yes, it's a value equation.
But
Yes.
look, one of the things that I've overlaid inside of how we've approached this, and I think it plays into how you, again, look, we use culture as this broad phrase, right? But you really understand what it means. So for us in the youth market, we've now started to move very directly on the notion of every activity we do should have an element of culture of good to it.
Yeah.
Because we know how important that is. And frankly, you hear Francois talk, the reality is, you know, they're going to save the world probably quicker, more effectively, and smarter than we are. And if you're not thinking about those things, it matters. Here's the elements that we focus in on. From a global perspective, it won't surprise you that the environmental components, and it ties back to what Francois said, they are far stronger pulls in Europe than they are in the US and Canada. Both what customers say versus what they do. The reality is the average American customer talks about the environment from a purchase intent perspective, but when you look at post-purchase, it's at the bottom of the list. So it starts high and moves down. So yes, there is a ton of work that we're doing there, and it moves through aspects of how we work with our suppliers. Just 2 weeks ago, I was out in Idaho at one of our potato farmers with a great Canadian company, McCain, and we were spending time talking to farmers about regenerative farming and what the role of regenerative farming is doing on the soils and the benefits, not only the yield, but the quality of the soil and the impact on the environment. We are going to start to tell those kind of stories. But we also talk about sustainability as human sustainability. And so the role that we take needs to not only deal with the environment itself, but the people that are in our ecosystem. And so that's why you saw us launch in this last year, the beginning of a people program around 1 in 8. And 1 in 8 is the fact that 1 in 8 Americans at some point have worked at McDonald's. When you think about that, that is an absolutely insane number. It's the equivalent of 55 of our largest stadiums in the country.
Wow.
That have been part of our community. How do you unlock that network to be a force of good? And when you think about the elements we're having around labor in this country right now, the aspect of being able to create value and people culture is another aspect of good that we're spending a lot of time talking, and our fans are reacting to the way that we're doing those things. And so we are very, very focused on a platform called Now Serving, which focuses on people, being in communities when they need us most, Ronald McDonald House being the flagship of that for us, and then the aspect of how we partner with our suppliers on the environment and the other elements of what we do for good in the world.
Good question and answer. I think we got one more question.
Yes, hi, I'm Gabby. I work at LinkedIn. That's my father.
I'm sorry, Gabby, I can't see where you are. Apologies.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm
there
right
you are.
here.
There you are.
You can just like angle that way. You mentioned getting buy-in from those franchisees in terms of like having to basically build champions at those franchises to get your message across and to have buy-in for your marketing campaigns. How are you like upskilling or driving like having them believe or buying into the change with like AI and using other media campaigning like tech pieces to like how are you getting them to buy into that? I feel like McDonald's been around for 70 years, as you mentioned. Like how are you getting that buy-in and also in terms of media?
I think we're approaching it something that I learned probably later in my life and probably misstepped early in my career, which is demonstrating success can get amazing buy-in. So we focused on the places where we can continue to drive wins, right? Coming out of COVID, we had amazing inertia. And the question became, how do you keep that momentum going? And when you can put the wins up, right, organizations like to win, and they're open to more risk. To be clear, probably the biggest challenge I had to take on when I joined the organization was embracing aspects of risk. And so we have now since put in elements, overt elements into the culture around failure. So we now quarterly will celebrate what we call amazing almosts, and where they are nominated We talk about the measurement of them being based on failing greatly, and we have definition around what that means. It's about putting the right objectives in place, collaborating, approaching it the right way, and then having sound reasons why it didn't achieve it. It sounds like a small thing, but it's been massively impactful on the culture. And if you think about startup worlds, what do they call that? They call it a pivot, right? So how do you start to bring a pivot mindset into a corporate culture that it then begets success? And then when you start to put the weeks behind it, that then allows you to start to roll the dice. Just to be very frank, that adult Happy Meal was intended to be a 30-day promotion. It sold out in 12 days. But be clear, part of the reason it sold out in 12 days was it was a toe in the water for us as an organization in terms of the forecast that we were willing to accept. The original forecast was more aggressive. And so when we didn't meet the original forecast, my team's original reaction was disappointment. And my reaction to them was, they're doing it. Because guess what? We're now doing another one, right? And so how do you win your way into confidence? And how do you fail your way into confidence, I think, is really what's behind the organization right now.
Great, thank you. Just one more last question from me, and thank you. What would you give in terms of guidance, Tarek, to the out-of-home media sellers, the media owners, the tech, the data companies here, as to best demonstrate the values of digital out-of-home and out-of-home to franchises, to your local agencies, to your national planning folks? How would you recommend they best communicate, and what should they best do?
Yeah, look, I think we are, again, we're a challenging organization when it comes to some of this because of the worlds that you have to live in. End of the day, I don't control our co-op dollars. I can influence them strategically.
Sure.
But it's up to those local organizations to drive their part of the business. So I recognize that creates a different dynamic. I think increasingly that actually creates an opportunity for you all. Because if you hear me talking about the digital journey and the omni journey that we're on, you can reinforce that at a local level and help us educate what the power of that looks like. So don't assume the knowledge is there. This is, like I said, you're unraveling a lot of years of traditional approach to things.
Sure.
And by the way, successful approaches to things. So the notion of change goes back to the question I was just asked. How do you actually get them to try a couple things? And what I would tell you is go for the try, not for the full win all the time.
Right.
Because they will, it's part of what's been successful as an organization. When something works, the scale that will come quickly is very fast, and the scale is huge. But get the win first.
So educate, go for the try, and there the wins.
And I would just say, the last thing I would say is wrap it in the omni conversation you're having, because,
yes.
And that's where the education comes in, because that is where we're winning.
Excellent advice. Let's give Tarek a great hand for some great and useful advice. Thanks, pal. Wonderful.